Understanding space infrastructure. The exploration and colonization of space will become the largest industrialization event in human history. This is like Spain having ships barely capable of crossing the Atlantic in 1492. So far, humanity has been throwing multi-million-dollar rockets into space and letting most of their structure fall back and burn up on reentry. Every nation today working on expendable rockets is wasting their time and money. There is no possible way that expendable rocket research is warranted, except for military counter-strike purposes or rapid emergency satellite deployment. All the money going into SLS is being wasted. If this rocket were to suddenly get on track and fly, it would not justify the cost. $17 billion have been spent so far on this system. It is one of the largest wastes of American wealth since the Iraq War. It will be obsolete the day it flies. Even if we disregard the Starship, SpaceX has almost perfected Earth-to-orbit rocket systems with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. The Falcon 9 has successfully sent 2 astronauts to the ISS. The return craft has multiple redundant parachutes and an emergency SuperDraco rocket system. We have a way to get humans into space. The Falcon Heavy can launch 63.8 tons to low Earth orbit for $150 million. We could easily design and launch massive spaceships into orbit with the Falcon Heavy, and have a Falcon 9 with a Dragon Crew Capsule launch and dock to deliver the crew and be used for Earth return. The Blue Moon lander only has a mass of 16.5 tons. The Dianetics human landing system should not have more than twice that mass. It would be trivial for the Falcon Heavy to get one of these to low Earth orbit with a propulsion module capable of getting it to the moon with a docked Dragon Crew Capsule. For $17 billion, we could have launched 113 Falcon Heavies for what we have spent on the SLS with nothing ready to fly. We could launch 50 Falcon Heavy lunar landers, deep space exploration vessels, or orbital habitats. Launch 50 Falcon 9 crew capsules to man them, and have hundreds of millions of dollars left over. This waste of taxpayer dollars should anger every American and every citizen of Earth. If we can agree that we should no longer be designing expendable rockets, then where should the world focus its resources? The New Glenn rocket is a reasonable competitor to the SpaceX Falcon Heavy. It will be more capable, at a low Earth orbit mass delivered of 75 tons, and have a much larger payload fairing. Everything else being developed, SLS, Ariane 6, Vulcan, and the LongMarch 5, are obsolete. If the Starship comes online, the New Glenn will be obsolete before it even flies, as would be the proposed partially reusable Ariane 7. Where should these nations and companies focus their resources? What infrastructure do we need in space? First, we have to make sure we have a way to get humans safely into low Earth orbit. We have that. The Falcon 9 with the Dragon Crew Capsule. Maybe Boeing can eventually get the Starliner to work, but even if they do, it is redundant. It is not better or more capable than the Dragon Crew Capsule. What about the Orion? If it is continued, it should be on award for completion only. The era of wasting billions of dollars to non-productive companies who kick back millions to politicians should be over. The United States and Europe will fail and end up footnotes in history if things don't change. So where should those dollars go? Basic science and new ideas should be funded. Loans should be guaranteed to help fund worthwhile projects. Awards should be given only for what is accomplished. First, we have to maintain access to space. That means reusable rockets like the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. We shouldn't depend on just one company, so funding the development of other companies with this capability is perfectly acceptable. Space planes are another option. The Lynx space plane should have been funded. Instead, it was allowed to die away. The Virgin Galactic spaceships will be used to train astronauts, and this is another example of Jim Bridenstine's tactical brilliance. If a more capable propulsion system could be mated to the Virgin Galactic spaceplane, its design could be improved into a low Earth orbit spaceplane. It might be necessary to build it out of titanium alloy instead of composites to withstand the higher reentry speed. So if we have dependable orbital crew vehicles, spaceplanes, SpaceX Dragon capsules, Orion capsules, etc., what do we need next? We need cislunar transport. The ISS have been orbiting the Earth for 2 decades now. We need to go further. The first step would be an Earth-Lunar Cycler. The cycler makes a continuous figure-8 orbit between the Earth and the Moon. This conserves fuel. The Apollo 8 missions took 6 days. That would give us a weekly schedule to get cargo and crew to and from the Moon to the Earth. It makes no sense at all to try to build true spaceships in Earth orbit. These need to be built in lunar orbit. The Moon is covered in aluminum and titanium dust. Every crater has, at its center, an asteroid with carbon, silicon, gold, platinum, osmium, iridium, and everything else you need. The poles of the Moon have millions of tons of ice. This can all be used to create a huge cislunar economy. Once we have outposts and colonies on the Moon capable of sending by electromagnetic catapult thousands of tons of water, rocket fuel, oxygen, and metals, we can start building massive orbital habitats and spaceships. We could also consider sending helium-3 back to the Earth to help power our society without producing carbon dioxide gas. If it takes 8 months to get to Mars, do it on a cruise ship-sized vessel with pulsed nuclear thermal engines or helium-3 fusion engines, and a meter of water shielding, artificial gravity sections, and zero-G play areas. These massive vessels will become Aldrin Cyclers. These are named for Buzz Aldrin, who recommended this type of ship to supply colonies on Mars. The Starship can lift 200 people into orbit in airline-style seats, but flying them to Mars for 8 months in those conditions is not practical. Build the massive cyclers and let them make this journey. Again, using a continuous Earth-to-Mars orbit. As the orbit nears Earth, cargo and personnel are dropped off for reentry, and fresh cargo and personnel rendezvous from Earth launchers. This is much more practical than having 6 refueling missions for each Starship on its way to Mars. Then we need power sats. These are solar-powered satellites that convert the solar energy to microwave beams and then, for a fee, transmit power to any rover, habitat, or station that needs it. These can be in a halo orbit over the far side of the Moon to provide power during the 13.7 Earth day dark lune, or lunar night. Sending this power to Earth makes no sense. Too much is lost in atmospheric absorption. Recharging your rover during lunar night makes perfect sense. You can have hydrogen-oxygen fuel cells and lithium-ion or lithium carbon dioxide batteries. Park for 12 hours and sleep while a power receiver positioned a safe distance from the rover or lander by cable receives power and charges you up for the next day. Now you have infrastructure. Power sats in orbit near Mercury could send a powerful maser or laser at an interstellar probe to get it up to speed on its way to explore the outer solar system, drop supplies to an outpost on Ganymede or Titan, or send it on a long journey to Alpha Centauri. Large O'Neill cylinders like those planned by Jeff Bezos can be built at L4 and L5 with resources mined from the Moon. These could hold millions of people and are absolutely necessary for the long-term survival of the human species. Humanity is more likely to come to an end through the actions of other humans than by any natural disaster. No asteroid is a greater threat to humanity than the nuclear missiles sitting in their silos plotting the destruction of our world. The best way to ensure the survival of the human race is to have a safety valve for adventurous and disaffected people. Somewhere those with different ideas can go to try things their way. There is always the risk of divergent cultures later coming to war, but if you want to guarantee the destruction of a civilization, have it try to tightly control the aspirations and expression of its people. The violence of the French Revolution was a direct result of the violence with which the people had been repressed. Give us somewhere to go, and let us live in peace. The European colonization of Australia was founded by those deemed unacceptable by English society. It was a prison colony for those who had run afoul of the law or just didn't fit in. This was devastating for the native population of Australia, but the Moon has no inhabitants. Hundreds of billions could live in massive orbital habitats. There is no better place on Earth or elsewhere to grow food than in an orbital habitat. Constant sunlight, perfectly controlled climate and growing conditions, recycling of water and oxygen. This is humanity's future. If the US and Europe cannot see it, the Chinese do. Nothing short of a large-scale nuclear war will keep them from completely dominating space, and nothing should. The Chinese have every right to expand to the Moon and beyond, to secure for their citizens the benefits of space resources. If you don't feel that the Chinese political system should have this much power and control, then compete. Get your people up there. Develop these resources. Nations like Spain and Portugal were at one time world powers because of the exploration and colonization of other lands. Nothing is preventing forward-looking nations like Luxembourg or the United Arab Emirates and others from taking their place in history and advancing all humanity as we leave the cradle of Earth and become a more advanced civilization. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to continue training. Patreon support will be offered soon. Leave your feedback on what we could do better and any subjects that would help you prepare for a future in the space industry. This video is a response to feedback from Oliver Grabowski. Thanks for listening, Oliver, and stay safe.